Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz. I want to thank Ryan Henry for making this opportunity available for me to interview a lot of interesting local folks. What is Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, that's me, Danny O'Malia. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service. It's all about the culture of the organization. I learned all of that from the hand of the master, my late father, Joe O'Malia. From the time I was from the O'Malia Food Market days, but even before that, when I was about 9 or 10, when he bought a small store in Broad Ripple, where the Vanguard Bar is now. That's how small the store was. And eventually lost the store and came back 10 years later and successfully opened O'Malia's. And one of the things I learned was never, ever, ever give up. At any rate, if you're interested in talking about the customer service training or keynote speaking and organizational culture, give me a call at 317-413-9062. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant Show? I like to describe it as lively local small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And today, my guest is my good friend from St. Louis de Montfort Parish, Jeff Utzinger. Jeff's son has played sports with my grandson Connor all through grade school and high school with CYO ball and so on and so forth. Also a star of the Cathedral's last two state championship football teams. And his son is headed to IU. He also has a daughter who's babysat my grandkids and a little guy who's going to be a freshman at Cathedral. And I understand he's going to play lacrosse too, right? He is. And Jeff has an extremely unique story, and it's a God's plan story. It's a life-saving story. But first of all, Jeff, tell everybody who you are besides my friend, and then we'll get into the whole be like Bill thing.
All right, thanks, Danny. Thanks for having me. Being your friend is typically enough to catch you to have me in the seat, but. Yeah, thanks again. Jeff Utzinger. I live here in the Indianapolis area with my wife, Christine. As you mentioned, our three kids, Jennifer, Jeffrey, and George, in the order that you introduced them. Originally, I'm from Michigan and moved around a few times with my dad in business and found ourselves in Indianapolis back in the late 80s. And graduated.
And you went to IU, right?
I went to Hope College.
Hope College in Michigan.
Yep.
Christine went to IU. Yep. Got it. Okay.
So I kind of went back to my root, so to speak, at Hope College. Graduated there in the early 90s, and moved around a lot with an organization I was with for about 20 years. Ended up back here in Indianapolis about 19 years ago, and we've been here ever since. And this is now home.
Okay. So what is your business?
My business my day job is recruiting professional. I've been in recruiting, all sorts of recruiting for a number of different industries and organizations. But what my passion is, kind of leading me here today, is an nonprofit organization we founded called Be Like Bill.
And that's where one of the most inspirational stories I've ever heard, especially when you hear the end of the story. Start at the beginning and explain who Bill is, and we'll move along.
All right, I will do that. And bear with me, I can tend to get a little choked up as I tell it, so keep me on point here.
I'll do my best.
Mr. Rowe. So almost 5 years ago to the day, it was June 20th, 2017. I was out for a routine run in my neighborhood where we live on the north side of Indianapolis. And now bear with me because I have no memory of this event. But I collapsed with what I now know was sudden cardiac arrest.
I can never think of that term when I'm talking about you. Sudden cardiac arrest, not a heart attack. Sudden cardiac arrest. Okay.
That's right. Heart attack quickly without the medical lesson is a problem with the plumbing, so to speak, the arteries. Enough blood's not getting to and from the heart. You can feel your chest tighten a lot of times and so forth. Cardiac arrest is something electrical, misfires, and the heart stops and you're just down.
And you don't get the warning like you might get with a heart attack. Okay.
That's right.
Gotcha.
There's no warning. And so I was out again for a run that morning of June 20th. As you mentioned, Jennifer was actually babysitting your godbabies.
At that time.
And actually saw me run by them just as a
Oh my
little
God.
aspect to the story. I don't know if I ever
forgot.
told you
I
that.
didn't know
They
that.
were outside trying to get my attention. She was out playing with Maddie, and I don't know if Shannon was born yet, but Ryan and Shannon.
Yep, she was born then.
She was born,
Yep.
and they tried to get my attention, but I was listening to music and didn't hear them. And about 200 yards later,
Out of their eyesight.
right, and they heard the sirens. Didn't think anything of it, of course. You usually don't. I do now. When you hear sirens in the neighborhood, it's typically routine. And but yes, so it was unwitnessed, meaning no one saw it, and
It was pretty early in the morning.
it was about 9:30.
Oh, okay, 9:30. Okay.
And you talk about God's plan and whatnot. If I can go there, there's a bunch of serendipitous, faith-based moments. My daughter being one of them. Another one being it was 9:30. There was a reason I wasn't working because I was in between jobs.
Or
If
it might
I
have
would
been,
have been working, I jog at 6:30 in the morning.
and it would be
and
less
pitch
likely
black.
somebody would have been. Yeah.
That's right.
Ooh.
So you can stress about being in between jobs, but good thing I was in this particular case. So there's a few instances like that I won't share all of them. But back to the story, Bill, an unknown neighbor at the time, pretty good friend now.
I'm sure. I know.
Came over the hill, saw me on the ground.
Oh, he was driving his car.
Yep,
Correct.
He was driving his car.
Now, isn't it true that he was taking a different route than
He
his
did.
usual route that day?
He
That's
did.
another part of God's plan.
Yeah, for
right?
some reason, because I remember asking him when I had the chance to finally meet him and talk about everything, why he, knowing now where he lives, what brought you, there's an entrance, we live in a very big suburb with multiple exits and entrances outside of it. And he said, honestly, I was on a phone call and I don't know, I missed my turn and
he missed
just
his
said,
turn.
I'll
He
just
missed
go
his
this
turn.
way. I'll just go this way.
Unbelievable.
Yes. So he sees me, and this is where the true remarkable, in my opinion, story comes in, because without what happens next, I'm not here. I'm a 3% chance of living at this point.
If he
the
hadn't
odds-
come along.
right, when it's witnessed, you have about a 7% chance of living. When it's unwitnessed, you have about a 3% chance. He stopped, called 911. The tape's phenomenal. He was courage under fire. He was strong. And that's where the word hero doesn't even start to explain Bill and describe Bill. Because I don't know that a lot of people would have stopped. And that's not an indictment on people. It's just I think we've become a society a little apprehensive to jump in with fear of litigation or
is this
they
guy
screw
faking
it
it?
up.
He's going to jump me
Exactly
or something,
right. Unfortunately, it's the world we live in.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, Bill didn't hesitate. He called 911 and he did CPR on me for 4 minutes. He had never done CPR. An important...
Was it mouth to mouth?
Nope.
Nope.
It's chest only.
Yeah,
Unless
okay.
you are a trained professional, it's chest only, which I think a lot of people don't know. And another reason why people might be a little scared to jump in and do something for fear of hurting them. Even if you pounded on my chest without doing it right, it still would have done something, right? It keeps the blood flowing, right? It doesn't start your heart, but CPR just keeps the oxygen going to the brain and whatnot.
And it only took the guys 4 minutes to get
About
there.
4 minutes to get there.
That's awesome.
That's
that right
pretty
there.
good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Typical response time for first responders is about 7 or 8 minutes. We live in a community that there's plenty of police around when you're going over 30 miles an hour on the roads up there. But thankfully there are a lot.
We
right?
live in Hamilton County.
Yeah, right. You better watch your speed there. But thankfully they're all over the place and responded quickly. Second most importantly, because I don't survive without CPR and the application and use of an AED, an automatic external defibrillator.
Which the
paddles,
guys brought
the
with
paddles
them.
you
Yep.
see on ER and Grey's Anatomy and all of that. But it's compact and it's user friendly. It's intuitive. A child can use it. So the cop had one. Fortunately, the police department and the community we live all have an AED because they're the first ones to respond. Let me tell you something. The EMT took another 3 minutes. So I'm not alive if that
the policeman beat the EMT
Yeah,
there.
because policemen are typically first responders. And that's why it's important that they have AEDs in their cars. Because if he doesn't, then I don't know that I'm alive after 8 minutes of CPR. So, because it takes both. It's a chain of survival, 911, CPR, and AED. The pads were placed, and it talks to you. It doesn't shock. If I would have been heat exhaustion, dehydrated, had too much to drink, whatever, it won't shock you unless you're in cardiac arrest. It's dummy proof.
Okay.
You can't hurt somebody with it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and they're not that expensive. So I'll get to where I've taken my story and what we're doing with it here momentarily. But they whisked me away to the hospital, and I want to say the rest is history. They couldn't get a hold of my wife because my phone's locked, or family. So they had to wait for her to call or somebody to call. Eventually they did. And after a little bit of confusion, said, we believe we have your husband here at St. Vincent's.
How long did that take?
That was a couple hours. I was admitted as a John Doe.
What made Christine call to begin with?
She was working, and they had just implemented or installed new VoIP phones, so they were testing them.
Okay.
They were testing them.
That's another thing.
Let me call,
And she couldn't.
She calls me a few times a day. She would have called eventually, but she called sooner than maybe she would have because she was testing this phone system. So that obviously got her turned upside down. A co-employee drove her to the hospital, and although the shot got my heart back in rhythm or started again, I was still unconscious. I was admitted, as I said, as a John Doe, and they had no idea what was wrong with me. So they told my wife that we don't know what happened. We're going to take him back for, they're assuming stroke.
Are you at St.
Or
V.
brain
Carmel?
hemorrhage, yeah.
Okay.
They're assuming a stroke because I'm in fairly good shape. It didn't look like, it could be heart, right? So they figured a brain aneurysm or a stroke of some kind. The results of the CAT scan and MRI came back clean for my head, so that was a relief. But now the question was, what happened? We're going to have to wait. I was in a coma. We're going to have to wait for him to wake up, see if he can tell us, because we don't know. So then they took me to the heart hospital once they knew it must be something below the neck with the heart. Took me to the heart hospital. They weren't sure if I was ever going to wake up. If I did, how long was I without oxygen? Meaning, was my brain altered? Was I going to be in a different state when I woke up? And chaplains came in and prayed with my family, my two older kids. They didn't know, again, timing of anything. They just had to wait. Meanwhile, my family and friends, close friends came in. And again, no memory of this, obviously. But as it goes, my two older kids, they shielded George from it, seeing all me intubated and whatnot, because he was, I guess, 9 years old at the time, but 9 or 10. But the two older kids and my wife started talking to me. They said, talk to him. He can hear you. You got to trust that he can hear you. And
Do you remember hearing him?
No.
Okay.
And I started to twist and turn and wanted out. And the doctor said, well, let's take the tube out and see if you can talk to us. So there was a, holding of collective breaths and whatnot. Took me off of it, and they asked me 3 questions. Do you know what year it is? So again, this was 2017. My answer was 2014. 0 for 1. Next question, do you know who's president? President Obama. 0 for 2. Trump had just taken office 6 months prior.
That was a toughie at that point.
My dad didn't appreciate that answer. But side note, number 3 was, do you know who these people are? And I said, it's my wife and kids.
1 for 3.
So that was the important one. But they kept me in the hospital that week. It was a Monday. I went home on late Friday, and they did a stress test. They did all kinds of, as you can imagine, all kinds of tests. No blockage, nothing to do with the function of my heart or the arteries. Nothing with the brain. Didn't have brain damage. I was going to have a little short-term memory, perhaps, issues, but they just still to this day, Mr. O, chalk it up to A, a miracle, and B, just, if you have faith, God's reminding you no one's in control, right? If you don't have faith, it's a medical anomaly that my cardiologist and EP just says, we still have no idea why this happened. Nothing genetic.
So by Friday when you went home, that they knew it was cardiac arrest?
Yes.
Okay.
But no explanation of the cause.
Explanation.
No irregular heartbeat, no long QT, no myopathies, which are heart enlargements.
So is there any treatment?
Nope.
Do you take any meds are,
Nope.
it's done.
Yep.
And hopefully it won't happen again.
Well, I have an implantable defibrillator now.
Okay.
So now I don't need that police officer if, God forbid, it would have happened
If it happens again.
Now I've got an implantable one under my armpit that will shock me if I need it.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was, even though they don't anticipate it happening again, because it happened once, I'm high risk. But no restrictions with running. It took Christine a while to let me run by myself.
I'll bet.
That took a while. She'd go with me for a bit and whatnot.
He is a big runner. I can vouch for that. So that's the first part of the story. Now, Bill hasn't entered the picture again yet. Right?
So it took a couple weeks because of vacations and a trip we had planned and one he had planned for us to meet. And I'll tell you, and my family got to meet him that week I was in the hospital. And I don't remember this, but they told me, just wait till you meet Bill. Bill's somebody that I would love, and he'd be a lifelong friend in meeting him under normal circumstances.
You want to share Bill's last name?
Yeah, Schleiss. Schlies. Bill Schleiss.
Okay.
And comes from a great family, raised a great family. His kids are a little older than mine. Had a daughter that swam at Carmel. His wife Jill they're just salt of the earth. They just salt of the earth. And so again, one of those guys you want to be with, you want in your life in normal circumstances, let alone somebody that's the reason that you're still here on this earth. So when we met, walking through the door, seeing the guy that without whom I wouldn't be here for my wife and my kids.
Stuff,
it was a very emotional evening. Very emotional evening.
He came to your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
So what happened from there? Now you're friends.
So
but there's a lot more to the story.
I'll tell you now. Let's get into the big part. Now, what am I going to do with this? Once I got my head around as much as I could about what exactly happened, how lucky I was, I thought, what am I going to do with the literal second chance that God's given me? Well, I'll tell you something. Your daughter Colleen is really the reason I'm wearing this T-shirt today. Oh. And I'll tell you that. So she tells me, she's side note, she's the one that found Bill for us on social media. No one knew who Bill was.
Oh.
We didn't know him.
How'd you find him?
Through the Nextdoor app. Just, does anyone know what happened to anyone know about the angel that saved my best friend husband's life?
And he answered that?
Yeah. He's like, I think I know something about that.
I didn't know that.
So Colleen found him. So that made her a special piece to this before what I'm about to tell you. But she came over her and Doug, I'm guessing the kids, of course, were over one night. And she said, she's got her own stories, right? And the mama said with her, everybody listening and knowing you knows that story, but she's done something with it, right? In the be kind and whatnot.
Yes, she sure
So
has.
as you can imagine, she says to me, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with this amazing gift that God's given you? And I said, what do you mean?
This sounds like her.
It was a non-negotiable. It wasn't like, are you? It's like, what? I'm like, she's like, you have to do something with your story. You have to tell this story because that 7% survival can jump to 60% survival if somebody calls 911, performs CPR, chest only, hands only, and an AED is applied. Simple, things that we can control. We can't cure cancer, and I'm not comparing the two, but sudden cardiac arrest takes the lives of 365,000 people a year. It's a health crisis.
Oh my God.
And it's not a heart attack. Those aren't heart attacks.
1,000 people a day.
Yeah. Die with cardiac arrest. A lot of youth, a lot of football players you see collapse.
Right.
So, and it's not preventable, but the survivor rates can be impacted dramatically.
I'll be darned.
So she said, you need to go tell your story, as she's courageously done herself.
Have you met Bill by this time?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So this was, I'm going to call it Mr. O 3 months later, 4 months later, still trying to get my head around everything, which I still probably will never be able to do. But I said, okay, so you need a name. I'm like, what do you mean name? And collectively, you need to name this. And we weren't thinking about organization, nonprofit, what our mission's going to be quite yet, but just education. She was courageous. If she can tell her story and you can tell yours, the same story, I can sure tell mine, right? I think it would be a shame and a waste if I didn't do something with what I was given. I think it would be. And people that experience these life-altering tragedies and events that don't share their story, that's okay. But I personally, and you guys are role models to me on how strong you are and were through yours that I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
So I said, of course I got to do something. Of course. And it's because of the O'Malley's family that gave me the courage to do that. And so she said, and then she had to name it. So this is where her marketing, right, and her brilliance comes in. So we came up with Be Like Bill. Simple. Be like Bill if you see somebody go down with cardiac arrest, of course, but be like Bill if somebody needs help with their shopping bags, or if a neighbor needs help with
whatever,
with shoveling their driveway, whatever it is. Just be a good person, because I think our society has flopped a little bit to the other side of things for good reason. But I just think it's, so there's some good in the world. There's still a lot of good in the world. There's still great people in the world, Bill being one of them, so be one of them.
So is Bill involved with you with this organization?
He
I
is.
thought so.
Yep. It took a while to get nonprofit 401c status, but we did, which is a nonprofit organization.
I don't want to run out of time. We got another important chapter here, but before I forget, if somebody wants to get involved with this Be Like Bill movement, give us the contact info. Yep,
my cell phone's probably the best way. In email, my cell is 317-698-2225, and my email is jeff@belikebill.org.
jeff@belikebill.org. So I know that you, and maybe Bill too, have gone out and given speeches to organizations, and all of this has led to the last chapter of this, which just is unfolding. About a month and a half ago, I guess now, I attended an event on the Monon Trail in Carmel, where Jeff Worrell, City Council, Carmel, and some other people, a doctor spoke, and tell us what's going on with these AED stations on the Monon.
So
this is awesome.
Yeah, our mission with a broad stroke was, let's raise money and to donate AEDs to communities and organizations that need them, parks and whatnot. But it was kind of a wide mission, right? And now I'm thinking to myself, our neighborhood at the clubhouse didn't have an AED, right? So we started there, right? And there's what's known as PAD programs. And simply that is a public access defibrillation program. Public access meaning you don't have to wait for a cop. You don't have to wait and run in your house and get one, which I have one, but public access, right? It speaks for itself. And what that means is the Monon, such an active trail. I started talking with Jeff Worrell and Dr. Tim Hannon and other council members to say, what happens if
somebody has this on the Monon?
Yep. And then you hear there's all kinds of reasons not to, right? Cost, we took care of that. They're not as expensive as you think. The police station's right there. It took an EMT 5, 6, 8 minutes to get to me. So the excuses just tend to run out, right? Really, it's lack of awareness. Like, what if somebody steals it? Listen, no one's stealing something that they're scared of. They're just, I told them I'd replace everyone that got stolen if that happens. I really don't think that's it. But we'll have cameras on them and whatnot. So to summarize, Be Like Bill on the Monon, and we want it to be more widespread outside of just Carmel.
Of
right?
course.
The Monon runs
a step at a time.
The Monon runs 20 miles or so?
Yeah.
But there's also parks. Carmel wants to do 5 or 6 along the Monon, and they're going to be in what's called save stations. All right? So it's a cabinet, heated in the winter, cooled in the summer.
And the one, you've already got the one.
Yep.
Right there at the Monon Trail, and I don't know what the intersection is, 4th Street or whatever. There's one.
That was the groundbreaking. That was the ribbon coming. Be Like Bill is going to provide the AEDs that go into these save stations.
Do you do any fundraisers yet?
We do. We do a golf outing. We do an NCAA March Madness event, and then a lot of people donate. This
give
is
us
Bill.
That website again.
Yep. www.belikebill.org. Now the website is very skin and bones, right? It's just a framework. We're doing this in our day job, right?
If you want to donate, how do you do it?
You can email me, and I can get you the proper donation form. Jeff@belikebill.org.
Now, is the golf outing past, or is it coming up?
It's coming up in the fall. And I don't have the details yet. We did it in the summer last year. We are shooting for early October.
Okay. So you can go to that website
Yep.
later to find out when this golf outing is. Do you know where it'll be?
Typically, we've done it at River Glen.
River Glen in Fishers.
I think it's Fishers,
Yeah,
close to Carmel.
yeah, okay, very good.
West Fishers.
So, you and I have talked about this a lot. I learned a lot today. I learned a lot about Colleen's involvement in this today, so thank you for that. And Jeff Utzinger with Be Like Bill and Bill Schleiss. Schleiss. Thank you for what you're doing for future cardiac arrest victims. And starting out with the city of Carmel and the Monon, hopefully this will spread out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today. Next week's guest will be Mickey. What's her last name, Ryan?
McAllen. Mickey McAllen.
Mickey McAllen, who's the district governor for Rotary, right? And both Ryan and I are Rotarians and proud Rotarians. Jeff Worrell is a Carmel Rotarian. And Rotary does a lot of great stuff. So thanks for watching the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.business. Thanks to Jeff Utzinger for being our guest. See you next week and learn all about Rotary.